There is a peculiar kind of silence that does not simply mean the absence of sound. It is the silence of spaces that were once alive, but now remain hollow, carrying echoes of something that is no longer there. We encounter it in abandoned buildings, in forgotten cities, in fictional landscapes within games and films. And each time, it leaves us with the same feeling: unease, fascination, and a haunting reminder of our own impermanence. Why do empty worlds speak to us so deeply? Why is it that walking into an abandoned mall or wandering through a virtual world devoid of characters feels heavier than stepping into a crowded one? Perhaps it is because silence does not just surround us, it reflects us. In this journey, we will explore several worlds, some digital, some cinematic, some carved into the very earth, that embody this silence. Not to frighten, but to reflect. Because emptiness is not merely the absence of life. It is the presence of everything we try to avoid: solitude, loss, and the inevitable passage of time. And maybe, by walking through these silent places together, we can better understand why emptiness feels so alive. Few video games capture the essence of silence like Shadow of the Colossus. At first glance, it seems like a tale of battles, an adventure where towering creatures must be defeated. Yet anyone who has wandered through its vast plains knows the truth. The story is not in the battles, but in the emptiness that surrounds them. You ride across endless fields with only the sound of wind, hooves, and the distant cry of birds. There are no villages, no bustling marketplaces, no voices to break the stillness. Music itself is rare, reserved for the moments of confrontation, which makes the silence of the journey all the more profound. The world feels sacred, but also unsettling, alive, yet devoid of comfort. The ruins scattered across the land whisper of a history long forgotten. The horizon stretches infinitely, but offers no companions, no rest, no warmth. In that desolate quiet, the player is left alone not only with their horse, aggro, but with their own thoughts. This is what gives the game its weight, the realization that silence is not empty at all. It is a presence, a companion, and sometimes even an adversary. Between the battles with the Colossi, the real struggle is with the stillness itself, and in that stillness, we begin to see ourselves reflected. But silence is not only found in fiction. Walk through the deserted streets of Pripyat, the city abandoned after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, and you feel the same weight pressing down. Classrooms still hold scattered notebooks, toys lie abandoned in kindergartens, and the rusting frame of an amusement park looms over the town. A park that was built, decorated, and ready, yet never opened. The silence here is different from ancient ruins. It is abrupt, almost violent. A silence forced upon a place that was alive one day and deserted the next. Families left with only minutes to gather their belongings. Many personal objects remained behind, not because people chose to abandon them, but because there was no time. The city feels as though its inhabitants might return at any moment, yet we know they never will. Unlike relics of civilizations long past, Pripyat feels unervingly familiar. The buildings resemble our own apartments. The classrooms look like those we once studied in. The playgrounds mirror those of our own childhoods. That is what makes it so unsettling. It is not the strangeness of the place that disturbs us, but its familiarity. Pripyat reminds us that silence can arrive suddenly, without warning. It is not the slow erosion of centuries, but the erasure of a single night. And in that silence, we confront the fragility of everything we call normal. Cinema, too, has long understood the power of empty spaces. In The Shining, the Overlook Hotel is not just a setting, it becomes a character in itself. Its vast ballrooms, endless corridors, and cavernous halls are filmed not as neutral backdrops, but as spaces alive with menace. The silence of the Overlook is never pure silence. At times, it is punctuated by faint echoes, by the creak of footsteps on polished floors, by the dissonant music Kubrick chose to fill the void. Yet the effect is the same. The hotel feels suffocating, oppressive, as though its very walls are listening. What makes the Overlook terrifying is not only its ghosts, but the way the space isolates those who walk through it. The camera lingers on hallways that stretch beyond sight, on doors that feel too heavy, on a maze that traps not only bodies but minds. The silence between sounds, the emptiness between human presence, is what transforms the familiar into something hostile. The hotel embodies our deepest fear about emptiness, that silence itself can turn against us, distorting perception and unraveling sanity. The horror of the Overlook is not merely that it is haunted by others, but that, within its silence, we become haunted by ourselves. There is another kind of emptiness, one that has captured the imagination of the internet: liminal spaces. These are not ruins of history or haunted hotels, but ordinary places, hallways, waiting rooms, schools, malls, that become strangely unsettling when stripped of people. Why does a school at night feel eerie? Why does a shopping mall without shoppers feel uncanny? These spaces are designed for movement, for transition, for the flow of life. To see them frozen, emptied of purpose, is to see them in a state they were never meant to exist in. The word liminal itself comes from the Latin limen, meaning threshold, a space between what was and what will be. When such places fall still, they reveal how fragile our sense of belonging truly is. A hallway filled with people feels safe, but that same hallway, empty, becomes distorted, uncanny. Emptiness here does not erase meaning. It twists it, reshapes it into something alien. Perhaps that is why liminal images resonate so strongly online. They remind us of something unsettling but inescapable. The spaces around us are alive only because we are. Remove us, even for a moment, and the world begins to look like a stranger. In fiction, few worlds embody silence as hauntingly as Silent Hill. This town is not simply a backdrop, it is a mirror, reflecting the fears, guilt, and traumas of those who enter it. Its streets are smothered in fog, its silence broken only by the wail of distant sirens or the crackling static of a radio that warns of unseen terrors. What makes Silent Hill terrifying is not just the monsters lurking in the mist, but the emptiness between them. Endless streets vanish into fog, alleys stretch into uncertainty, and every corner feels wrong, as if the town itself were watching. The silence presses in, forcing players to project their own unease into the void. The city adapts to its visitors, reshaping itself according to the shadows of their minds. James Sunderland, in Silent Hill 2, does not merely walk through a cursed town, he walks through the architecture of his own guilt. The monsters, the fog, the silence, all of them emerge from within as much as from without. Silent Hill is frightening not because of what it shows, but because of what it withholds. The silence becomes an invitation for imagination, and in that space, our own thoughts rise to the surface. The true horror lies not in the town, but in the reflection it offers. When the world falls quiet, the monsters that remain are the ones we bring with us. We do not need distant cities or cursed towns to feel the weight of silence. It waits for us in the most ordinary places. A hospital corridor late at night. A subway station after the last train has gone. An office building when the workday has ended. These places are built for life, for movement, for noise. Yet once emptied, they shift into something alien. The walls are the same, the lights unchanged, but the absence of people distorts them. What was once safe becomes uncanny. What was once familiar feels hostile. This everyday emptiness unsettles us because it strips away illusion. Silence is not only out there in abandoned landscapes, it lives among us, in the spaces we occupy daily. And when we find ourselves standing in that silence, we are reminded of how fragile our sense of normality really is. The world is never truly silent. There are always faint sounds, the hum of electricity, the creak of a building, the echo of our own breathing. But when human presence fades, we realize how much we rely on others to keep the noise of existence alive. Empty worlds are not simply backdrops for stories. They are mirrors, reflecting what we carry inside. Whether it is a video game like Shadow of the Colossus, a real city like Pripyat, a haunted hotel on screen, or the empty hallways of our own schools, silence reveals what is usually hidden: solitude, loss, and the unrelenting passage of time. We return to these spaces again and again, not because we seek escape, but because they confront us with truths we would rather ignore. They remind us that life is fragile, that presence is temporary, and that endings are inevitable. The silence of empty worlds unsettles us because it is never just about them, it is about us. In their stillness, we see the echo of our own impermanence. And perhaps that is why these places haunt us long after we leave them. Silence does not lie. It does not distract. It simply waits, showing us what remains when everything else has gone. And in that truth, stark, unadorned, inescapable, lies the most haunting silence of all.